Hi everyone, thanks so much for being here. I'm Emily Hartley, I'm an editor at Ballantine, and it is truly a privilege to get to introduce you to Glory Edim, the founder of Well-Read Black Girl. Because to me, she exemplifies why everyone in this room is here. Because of our faith in what books can do for a person's soul and how they foster community and create a better world. I first encountered Glory back in 2015 when I was working at Penguin, now I'm at Ballantine, and I started the Penguin Books Instagram. I was looking for diverse voices in the book world to follow and engage with, and Glory's Well-Read Black Girl page, though it had only a few thousand followers at the time, was a well-curated celebration of what it means to be a smart, book-loving Black woman. Today, Well-Read Black Girl could almost be called a movement. It began as a book club hosted by Glory to bring attention to books by Black women. And over the past 3 years, having hosted meetings with writers including Margot Jefferson, Angela Flournoy, and Ya Jesse, Well-Read Black Girl has become an online community of 100,000 on social media. And the second annual Well-Read Black Girl Festival will be held in Brooklyn this fall. Last month, Glory received the Innovators Award from the Los Angeles Times Book Festival for her work creating a vital new space for literary discussion and engagement, and she and her book club have been profiled in countless publications. After 2 years of following Glory's book discussions and recommendations from a distance, I reached out to her in early 2017 about whether she'd like to do a book of her own. We met for coffee, and 6 months later, I was acquiring my very first book for Ballantine, or actually my first 2 books. Glory's anthology, Well-Read Black Girl, Finding Our Stories, Discovering Ourselves, will come out this October, and her memoir about growing up with a single mother and being raised by books will be out in 2020. So, do you remember the first time you met a character or read a line that felt like it was written just for you, and suddenly the world felt a little more welcoming? That feeling is what inspired the Well-Read Black Girl anthology, in which Glory has enlisted some of our best Black women writers to craft essays about the first time they saw themselves represented in literature, something that unfortunately happens far less often for people of color, and about the books and the writers that inspired them. The books they mention, together with lists of recommendations throughout that Glory has curated, make it both a great read for book lovers — I'm telling you, I love some of these essays — and a fantastic resource for anyone looking to expand the reach of their reading. My hope is that you see readers walk into the library with this book in hand, asking for titles they've seen mentioned in it, or that you yourselves can use it to aid in making your own recommendations. Libraries have always been a place where book lovers gather to find community and to feel at home. And with Well-Read Black Girl, Glory Edim has created a similar space for Black women to be inspired and celebrate sisterhood and empowerment through literature. And so I'm completely delighted to introduce you to the wonderful Glory Edim.
I'm coming, guys. All right, thank you, Emily. You're so sweet. Wow, good morning.
Good morning.
I'm so honored to be here. I want to thank Library Journal for inviting me. I want to thank my wonderful Random House team. Emily, I love you so much. You've just been an amazing editor and like a pleasure to work with. Because when that happened, when that email happened, I was like, who, me? Write a book? Like edit? That was not anything that I envisioned. And to be standing in front of you now, it just feels like a dream come true. So I'm going to talk a little bit about my love affair with libraries, because I love librarians. You guys are great. And for someone who loves to read, libraries can be a safe haven, but they can also be childcare for your mother. As Emily mentioned, I grew up in a single parent household, and so every day after school, my mom would take me and my brothers to the library, and we had to do our homework, of course, but we also had to preoccupy like a lot of our time, and we would just kind of explore and write stories and make up our own plays and spend a lot of time just in the stacks, like looking for books and looking for ways to just build our imaginations. Yeah, so I want to say public libraries for sure was my first introduction to sharing with my brothers and with people there, and also community building. Because it was a space for me where I really cultivated my sense of belonging and understanding that things could be shared in a way that built more than just community, but like kinship and family. So I'm originally from Arlington, Virginia. Anyone? Yes, Arlington Central Library. That's what I'm talking about. So it was there at Arlington Central Library that I learned how to take care of books that I borrowed. And I think that's such another important part of libraries. It's like, you know, you grow a fondness of getting book covers and like knowing not to bend the pages or not to write in the margins. Like you really understand that books are of value and they're to be cherished and really loved. So yeah, I did my best to protect each book that I borrowed from the library and save them for my brother, who had a tendency to rip pages and eat them. But I also understood that they would last and they'd be used by many people, whether you're doing research or trying to further your education or learn a first language. That all happened in my library. It was an extension of my education. And another part of it was definitely thinking that, you know, this is a long-lasting object and not a disposable one. Every time my brothers and I would select a new story, we were learning about how the world worked, and we were strengthening our imaginations. As first-generation kids, it was our introduction to new cultures outside of our home with our African parents. And we would like do these journeys all over the world, and we would encounter different stories and characters. I remember the first time I read 100 Years of Solitude. I remember the first time I read Little Women and like seeing Jo March and realizing that like I'm kind of like her. I'm a little spunky, you know. I remember the first time I read Toni Morrison. All these things really happened at the public library. I didn't necessarily have the access to always go to the bookstore and purchase books on my own. I had to have another resource. So those memories for me were just impacting and like left a lasting impression. And I never thought that I would have this experience coming from a space of being just a really dedicated reader to now moving into a space of being on the other side and being an editor and author. And I have such a grand appreciation for the work that you all do and the reasons you do it. You see so much in whether it's a student or an adult, like whoever walks into those rooms, your library, they can feel connected to the books and the community there. One of my favorite quotes is from Giovanni's Room by James Baldwin. He wrote, "You think your pain and your heartbreak are unprecedented in history of the world, but then you read. It was books that taught me that that tormented me the most were the very things that connected me with all the people who were alive, who had ever been alive." And that's a quote that I really cherish and hold dear to me because there are so many experiences that I have gained and learned in terms of empathy and access. I've really gained through reading. My mother is also a historian and an educator, and she, of course, is one of my best teachers, and she nurtured my love for reading as well. And she also instilled in me to be compassionate and really listen. And I think that's another part that's like really, and I promise I will talk about my book, but I think that's another part that really makes Well-Read Black Girl like so successful is because it's a really like a living, breathing affirmation, and we're constantly listening to each other, and we want our stories to be told. In the space that we create, the book club, we empower each member to be her best self, and we extend ourselves and share our personal stories within each book club meeting. So the quotes and the characters serve as blueprints to guide the conversation and encourage new friendships. There's a level of openness that sometimes isn't extended in our daily lives. So creating this anthology, I wanted to really emulate that experience that we have with one another. I wanted the contributors to share memories and really be vulnerable with their experiences and answer that question. When did you first see yourself in literature, and how did that change you? How did that influence your craft? How did that make you a better person? As someone said earlier, you are what you read. And when you see yourself in a book and you see your reflection, it just makes you, quite honestly, a stronger and more vibrant person, but it also creates a storyteller in you. So this anthology really is an extension to the world I've been trying to create online and off. I'm extremely proud of every story, and I can't wait for my book club members and librarians and educators and everyone to read it. I think it's going to be such a beautiful resource for everyone who encounters it, especially young people. If I had found this book on the bookshelves when I was like in the 8th grade, or I think I would, because I love so many different authors, but I didn't really encounter Black authors until I was much older, when I was studying at Howard University. So if I had been able to see myself a little bit earlier, I just think what could have that instilled in me and changed my perspective. So as Emily said earlier, it started with this question: when did you first see yourself in literature? And I really believe that the stories in this collection are a reflection of how beautiful and diverse Black womanhood is. And the narratives are really rooted in all over the diaspora. So we have Jesmyn Ward, who talks about her Southern background, to Nicole Dennis Benn, who talks about her Caribbean upbringing. There's poets, there's academics, there's just a whole range of beautifully diverse stories that are really authentic and real, that anyone can relate to, whether you're a young person or you're, as I like to say, an elder. You can find something to reflect and really hold with you. In addition to that, I think there's something beautiful about the stories that really shares our resilience and just what it means to have like an unbreakable sisterhood. They're coming of age stories as well, and the stories that attest to the power of Black girl magic. What does that really mean? How do you feel that? And I think most importantly, the stories in this collection keep with the long tradition of storytelling, and the contributors are passing along their most cherished literary memories. And I'm excited for librarians to use the anthology as a tool to reimagine the literary canon. I really do hope that the stories and the reading list that we've been curated in the book will allow other young people to see the stories that may not be as popular on the bookshelf. Like we all know Little Women, I mean, that's an incredible book, but do we also know Gloria Naylor's Mama Day? Like there's so many more stories that we can share and really amplify. And I know you guys know this, I'm just reiterating. And so today I'm honored to do the work, and I'm really honored to just be sharing the narratives of underrepresented writers and pay tribute to the writers that have come before me, like Toni Morrison, Gloria Naylor, Alice Walker, Nikki Giovanni, people that I truly admire and love. And to me, libraries are really synonymous with education and offer countless learning opportunities that can fuel social and cultural development. And this anthology, quite honestly, is the very beginning of my journey. And I'm excited to share my world and my inspirations with you. And I hope that you guys will be just as excited as I am.